So keep on eating as it comes, okay? But with that said, how about we all stand and shake? Jim?
Go in prayer or meditation. I say, bless this food to our youth, us to thy service. Amen.
Amen. And who's leading our song today?
I'm leaving it down. So I looked through the book and I thought it was appropriate to sing Rose Susanna since I do come from Alabama. Sorry to hit it.
What page? What page? 14.
Page 14. Top of the page 14. Okay. I come from Alabama, with a banjo on my knee. I'm going to. I come from Alabama, with a banjo on my knee.
Everybody have a seat. Couple of announcements this morning. First, I do want to welcome Tommy Arnold to our club today. I don't need to put trouble here, so well, we want to say hello to Maddie, who I think is on the Zoom call with us today. Yeah. You're doing better. Couple of announcements. Bill is still hunting down people for participation in the baseball game.
14.
Week from tomorrow. And so if you have not told him if you're coming, let him know. He's doing the final head count and making those arrangements. So again, that's a benefit for Polio Plus. So it's great if you're able to join and be a part of not just our club and the two clubs on the shore, but all of District 7600 being over at the game and celebrating the Norfolk Tides and the Polio Plus fundraising now.
We're going to meet at 4 o'clock in the food line parking lot.
Just a
Food line park. Yeah, I'm going to send out more detail, but if you must know, Alan.
what was the last one?
Details about. Yeah, you can bring something and it's
I get on the bus to change it, baby.
Figure out what's going on.
Okay.
Come on. That's four. Hey, Charles. Hey, Charles.
I'm sure you don't know the last one.
Details involved.
So the next step is a couple of minds of upcoming volunteer efforts that we are doing. The first one is the Chamber Fest event, which is on May 17th. It's a Saturday. So again, from about 3 to until they stop playing the music, somewhere around 8:39. I don't know. Hey, thank you. There is a band, a live band that's going to be down by the harbor area in town as a Chamber Fest fundraiser. And the Rotarian Club here on the shore, all three of us are coming together. We're going to host a table to do a Discover Rotary, so we can make people aware of what we do and talk, etc. I heard from 2 of you confirmed, Bill Strand being one of them, Libby Wright the other, with actual time. you want it, that you are able to staff, if you can let me know, because a couple of you had told me before you're interested in doing that. Just come back to me so I know exact times and we'll make the arrangements to get you in. You know, we've got tickets, the whole works, we gotta get you access in on that day. So please let me know so I can firm up everybody's calendar and get the whole list over to the organizers of the table, okay? It's Saturday, May 17th. Yes, May 17th. That date sounds familiar because we are also, as the Rotarian Club, hosting Art in the Park in Central Park in town. This is Joan Natale's lead project for us. This is our second year of doing Art in the Park, and so we think we have, oh, she's gonna kill me, I should look this up, 12, I think 12 or 15, somewhere between 12 and 15 artisans have gotten tables for this event. So again, we're gonna need assistance from Rotarians to help that morning in helping provide access to the artisans to unload their product, get set up in the morning. We will be doing overnight security of the park, because again, it's a 2-day event. So again, if you have not let Joan know, if you can help, please do that, or if you can't get up to Joan, because she's right now, I don't know why at the moment. Then let me know and I will get that information over to Joan. So we are having, again, some donation of golf carts to help with the overnight security piece, and we'll try to get a couple more people, but if you're able to help that evening or that morning of, or the next day on Sunday as well. So when the event winds down, we've got to help all the artisans get all their stuff back in their vehicle that they haven't sold. And lastly, just a quick reminder, 2 weeks after that, Memorial Weekend, we are once again helping with the parking of Art in the Farm over at the Bear Island Center. Chuck's the lead on that project. I think you got all of your shifts filled at this point. But more than anything, if you're not working, then come out and spend your money at the Art in the Farm. It's a great event. If you've never been, it's a lot of fun. And that's about it that I've got.
Eat the lion's food.
And eat the lion's food. And the last one I want to make everybody aware of, it's a new addition to our calendar on June 3rd, our regular meeting here. I've now heard from our district governor, Joy Klein, who's going to be coming back through, and she's coming to that particular meeting to give us an award. I think you've already heard once before, we did a really amazing job with the bell ringing during the Christmas season with the Salvation Army. So they are coming to present that award to us. So I've given the go-ahead, Paul. I'm so sorry, we're going to blow the bank. To send out the invite for the Salvation Army volunteers. I've given that to Libby, so we're gonna be working on that. We'd like to invite them to this particular meeting, so I'll be people. Understand? So you better be on the top of your game of recruiting and convincing them all to become members still. But we're gonna have a full crowd on June 3rd, because I think it's well received, and we love being able to be a part of helping the Salvation Army raise some funds that they need for their purposes. So. But we get Joy Klein here, our district governor, and so we're so excited to have Joy here. She's winding up her season, her year of being district governor. So that's all the announcements I have. So I'm going to turn it over to the rest of the club. Any announcements you all wish to make?
Yes.
Paul.
I want to thank everybody that's sent in their dues. I think over half of the members have already sent their dues to me. But at least quite a few of you that still haven't. I'm going to be here next week, but then I'm going to be gone on vacation. I'll be back one last week before my back surgery, which will leave me out of commission for about a month. So I need to try to finish up the business of this quarter as soon as I can within the next couple of weeks. So if you don't have your check to me yet for your dues, try to get it to me. Next week, I'll be at next week's meeting. All right, thanks.
Excellent. Anyone else for the announcement? Okay, moving on. I will open up if anybody is happy and wants to provide some funds for that, some happy dollars. Here's your chance. Anybody? Bill.
I'm happy because Diane is here. $10.
$10. Excellent. And I should remind everybody, if you may recall a few months ago, I made a pledge commitment under Happy Dollars that if Jackie ever made it back to a Rotary meeting for our club, I would contribute 50 Happy Dollars.
Whoa.
I did it, and I'm holding true. So Paul put it down in my ledger, because Jackie showed up to our social last week. And so I am honoring that pledge I made. So I was so happy to see Jackie there. The social was amazing. So if you weren't there, you all missed a fabulous time. But we had a really nice event and I appreciate it. But Jackie showed up and we had a great time with her as well. Even better. So, happy dollar, Betty.
Another $10 for having that in the back.
Very nice. Family.
$5, because I had a successful split yesterday, so I'm up to 3 hives, guys.
And I didn't even leave Rusty out. See you here in a while either. Where you been? Oh. Any other happy dollars? Graham?
$20. I will miss that. The full game and the weekend, so I will be fortunate. I'll be thinking.
Okay, that. Have I missed any other happy dollars? Diane?
I'm going to do $10 happy dollar.
So we do have a fantastic program. I'm going to turn it over her in 1 second to our program today. Just want to do a last round of our Queen of Hearts card. I think Jason was circulating to everybody, so I think are we ready to do a drawing of who's got the high card today for Queen of Hearts?
I had a deuce, but I gave it back.
Who's got the high card today? Anybody with an ace? Anybody with an ace of the high card? We're gonna make your bank table better.
What is that? Got a jack of diamonds.
Making the banking a little hard today. That's what we collected. Make some hearts. Anybody make some hearts? No, I've got an ace of hearts over here. So Ken is our big winner for the day. So let's have him draw from our cards. And see if he gets the Queen of Hearts. Oh, if he wins, what's his bank?
$6, he gets $6.
Oh, okay.
Go. Go.
So, so.
Check them all when you get it.
Not when it's two spades. We're so fortunate to have Janine Hall is going to speak to us about some Northampton County Eastern Church history from the 1600s. So we're really going to get quite educated today. Much needed among us. So, Janine, I turn the floor over to you. Okay? Thank you. Fun group. Happy dollars. Is that a little gambling or what? What's that? Well, thank you for inviting me to be with you today. When I was a child, the Rotary Club was a huge presence in my hometown of Victoria, Virginia. That's in South Central Virginia. The Rotary Club used to meet in my church's social hall. And the church committee provided lunch for them. Back in the 60s, no one in Victoria had ever had lasagna until my mother made it. And they didn't know if the Rotary was going to like lasagna or not. I think they had committee meetings about it. But anyway, turns out the Rotary loved it and requested it at least 3 times a year. But anyway, I do know the good work y'all do, and I so much appreciate being here with you. Now, instead of a PowerPoint, I prepared some pages for you, just a couple of pages each. I want to, yeah, that would be great. They're already separated, so.
So to.
Just one little set for each person.
Okay, perfect.
I think there's enough there for you, for each of you to have a set. It's just 2 pages, a map and a sort of collage of pictures. I thought that might be easier than a PowerPoint. Now, my expertise for being here is that I wrote 2 books about early 17th century English Eastern Shore history. And I'm not here to talk about I'm truly not. I just wanted to come in. But if you think, that doesn't matter. You can, they're here, and if you'd like to see them, you're certainly welcome to come up and look at them. Now, the Cape Charles Museum usually has them on hand, and sometimes Rayfield Pharmacy has them. But I wrote these books primarily to preserve discoveries that I made in my research. Now, last year, a reviewer asked me, how was it that I saw things in Virginia history that earlier researchers had missed? Were those stories hidden all those years and I discovered some magic formula that made them appear? Well, yes, I did. No, I didn't. The only magic that I used in my research is my grandmother. Now, I don't mean to imply that my grandmother had supernatural powers, although she did have a little bit of a sixth sense. But she did have a gift for telling stories about her childhood here on the Eastern Shore. And those stories inspired me to research her family roots. She was born in Exmoor in 1906, and her family lived in the town of Cape Charles just before they moved across the bay during the railroad shopmen's strike of 1922. And when her family left, it was the first time since the 17th century. In other words, my grandmother's roots went all the way back to the beginning of English habitation here on the Eastern Shore. Now, I wanted to know about the lives of those earliest ancestors. And to do that, I had to, and continue to, read the early records of the Virginia colony. So the magic is in the reading. The Virginia Company records and the Virginia colony records are easily accessed by anyone today. But you see, many people who are writing and telling about early history today still rely solely on histories that were written before those records became accessible through transcription and the internet. When you go back to those source materials using transcriptions available today, you see many stories that have been passed over and many stories that were just plucked from their context. Now, the history here on the Eastern Shore is much more broad and deep than what early writings told us. So today, for the few minutes that we have together, I've prepared to tell you a couple of stories that, to my knowledge, have never been told before. And I chose these stories because of where we are right now, here in this restaurant. This restaurant was built in 16, no. We are at the head branch of Old Plantation Creek. It's right, not too far away. Now you have a map. Find the red square to the right on the map. And this is where we are right now. Note, if you will, that we are at the gateway into Old Plantation Neck.
The gateway is between the headwaters of Kings Creek and the headwaters of Old Plantation Creek. It is not by chance that Old Cape Charles Road and the Stone Road are where they are. Those paths provide the only way in and out of the neck, unless you have a boat or swim well. Now, on your map, on Old Plantation Neck, you see a red mark below the Bay Creek circle with the golfer. That red mark shows where the first English settlers to the Eastern Shore made their home. Now, we won't be talking about them today, but they are in my book. Now, not far from where we sit today, right here, a man named John Dennis built a home in the 3rd or 4th decade of the 17th century. Now, on your paper of pictures, you'll see the mark John Dennis used as a signature and as his cattle brand. It looks like a capital I with a little cross in it and a capital D. Now, the letter J was in transition in those days and was often written to look like what now is an I. John Dennis always signed with that mark, that JD, which means that he was not literate, which was the norm in those days. Now, John Dennis's house was probably within a stone's throw of where we are right now. It was probably of the post in ground, 1-room variety, as I believe he leased this land, probably, and so he probably didn't invest in a more permanent structure. But post and ground is just as it sounds. They dug holes for posts. Weatherboards were attached to the posts. Some houses were braced with timber and clay daubing was used for walls. Roofs were either shingled or thatched. Now, I'm sure some of those houses were better built than others, but these structures could last for decades if they were well maintained. Now, on a fall day, 389 years ago, in 1636, John Dennis and William Ward spent most of the day playing 9-pins at Dennis's house. 9 pins is the early version of what we know as bowling. And you can see how the 9 pins were set in the picture on your page. We know about this because William Ward neglected his job that day. His job was cowkeeper for Lady Dale cattle. Lady Dale did not live in the colony, but she invested in cows and bulls and owned about 50 or so that grazed on the ridge of the shore, anywhere from perhaps today's Food Line down to stingrays. Now, it was important to keep the cattle out of the necks. Now, I marked those necks on your map with the word neck in white. It's a little difficult to see. It's fairly faint, but people were making their homes and planting their crops in those necks. Now, Mr. Ward that day got caught up in the game. Perhaps it was a little gambling, perhaps a little drinking. We don't know that, but we do know that the cattle took advantage of their freedom and hastened over to Henry Charlton's cornfield. Now, Charlton's cornfield was believed in that neck just west of Route 13, across from where Kiptopeke School is today. And that would be about the second neck down on your map. William Ward was fired from his job. His severance pay was a cow calf given to him by Lady Dale's manager. However, this incident was only one of several that led to his firing. This was the second time the cattle had wandered into Charlton's corn. The first time Ward was asleep on the job, And on another occasion, Ward left to run an errand and the cattle were attacked by wild dogs, which plagued the shore in those days. And finally, he lost a steer and he couldn't account for it. So all that accumulated to his firing. Now, also in this neighborhood, we have Henry and Marjorie Williams. The Williams lived just to the north of where those cows had feasted on Mr. Charlton's corn. Marjorie Williams instigated some gossip that culminated in the local court sentencing our friend John Dennis to sit in the stocks and to ask Marjorie's forgiveness. Now, the drawing at the left center of your page shows a man in a stocks. That stocks looks to be fairly tolerable, but often the seat was narrow and really never had a back on it. Like he looks fairly comfortable there actually. But imagine having to sit on a narrow board for anywhere from 1 to 4 hours. And we aren't told how long John Dennis had to sit in the stocks, probably for the length of a church service, as these punishments were often paired with church to guarantee an audience for the humiliation factor. It's a bit odd how this story played out because Marjorie had said something hurtful about John Dennis and he had confronted her, and then they exchanged name calling, and then Marjorie threw a pipkin at John Dennis. Now the image there shows what a pipkin is. It's a small earthenware vessel with a handle and some feet that probably could have hurt him. But John is the one who wound up being punished, not Marjorie. And I believe that's because he went to her house to confront her, and the fight took place there. So the court viewed him as the instigator, even though he was essentially there to defend against Marjorie's gossip. Now, gossip is not the word they used in those days. The early phrase for that was passing speeches. By 1662, this issue was addressed by the Virginia General Assembly. The General Assembly worded it this way, quote, "Brabbling women often slander and scandalize their neighbors, for which their poor husbands are brought into chargeable and vexatious lawsuits," unquote. Now that's when ducking stools were decreed to be on hand at all county courts for those brabbling women. You can see a representation of a ducking stool in the lower right drawing on your page. Now, when they decreed those ducking stools to be at all county courts, they just joined what was already there for punishment, which would have been the stocks, the pillory, and the whipping post. That's what you had in your courthouse lawn in those days. When John Dennis felt that he was harmed by Marjorie Williams' gossip, the right course of action for him at that time would have been to sue Mr. Williams for his wife's behavior. And then Marjorie might have been sentenced to a ducking, which at that time would have taken place on King Street, probably near Bay Creek Marina. Now, I'm pretty sure that you would never have heard of John Dennis, William Ward, Henry, and Marjorie Williams if it weren't for my grandmother, whose stories inspired me to look further into these old records. Now, I have not yet given a presentation, nor do I plan to, that doesn't mention my grandmother, her contribution to the research that I am doing. I do that not just to, as a tribute to her, but also to remind my listeners that we all have stories to tell. Sometimes it's as simple as describing a childhood chore. My grandmother's childhood chore was cleaning the chimneys of the parlor oil lamps. Preservation isn't just for buildings, it's also for language, for activities, for images. And think back into your own childhood and find an image that will be lost if you don't share it. For me, one of those is that I had to go into the basement and fill the coal hopper after my brother left to go to college. And after I left to go to college, my parents got an oil furnace. If you are fortunate enough to still have parents and grandparents, aunts and uncles, listen to their story if they're willing to share. Or perhaps you are that parent, grandparent, aunt, or uncle. There's nothing like the inspiration that comes from hearing something you never heard before. So go and share your stories. Somebody is out there waiting to hear them. Thank you for your attention. I do have one more piece of paper for you. This is an aerial photo taken in the early 1950s when Route 13 was still a 2-lane country road. And you can easily see how the railroad and Stone Road take up the center of that gateway into the net. So this will be just for you, just for fun. Does everybody here live down here in Cape Charles? Yeah. Well, then you'll probably enjoy seeing that. Does anyone have a question? Yeah.
Not a question, but
Sorry.
find your talk very interesting. I've been a genealogist for almost 31 years. And if you have a few minutes after the meeting, I'd like to talk with you.
I love that. I'm go ahead. If not, I want
Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the club members to Janine?
Yes, would you mention the beginnings of where Cape Charles was settled on plantation?
You know, a lot of people want to tell you, or I'm sorry, that's probably the wrong way to say that. We've heard over the years that the first settler of the Eastern Shore was Thomas Savage. He was important to the Eastern Shore. The Eastern Shore could not have been settled without Thomas Savage, in my opinion, or not as settled as easily without Thomas Savage. But he was not the first permanent settler here on the Eastern Shore. That was John and Francis Flower. And they settled, and I can show you that little red mark on your map. I believe that area was part of the earlier salt and fishing expedition. They come to the Eastern Shore in 1614, was here for about 3 years. And I believe they used that part of Old Plantation Neck as their off-season site. They fish, they make salt down on the seaside, down on Smith Island. And on the off seasons, they go to a more pleasant, let's say, weatherwise site, which I believe was Old Plantation Neck, to repair their nets, to repair their salt pans and things like that, and also plant. plant a garden for themselves. So I believe that took place over here on Old Plantation Net. And then they had to abandon the salt works, the colony, the Virginia colony, abandoned that salt works, not for any reason other than that a lot of the men's, indentures were up. And so they went back over to the mainland and they intended, I believe, to send men back, but it didn't happen for one reason or another. We had a huge Indian attack in the colony that interrupted a lot of what I think they had planned. But in the meantime, John Flower, I was one of the salt workers or fishermen, or maybe they did both, but I believe he came back over here with the permission of the governor. And that's a fairly long story. You can find it in this book. But anyway, he came back over here to that site where they had planted. And I think that's how it got its name, Old Plantation. Because that was the old plantation site for these earlier salt workers and fishermen. And he brought a wife with him. She was what they call a Jamestown bride. She came over specifically to, with other women at that time, hundreds of them. When I say hundreds, I do mean that. I think it was about maybe 200, something like that. And Frances was one of those women who came over specifically to be a bride, become married. There were so many men over here, but few women in comparison. So she came over, they married, and they came over here, probably not alone, probably came with another couple or so. But that's not known because it was Ron who owned 140 acres, and he claimed them down there on Old Plantation Neck. So he was the first. Does that answer your question, or did you want me to go further?
That is a matter of time. We need that up to our score.
I actually am not wearing my watch. I don't even know what time it is right now.
4
Before or after. So I know some of us have to get back to work, but those who want to stick around, which you need a couple more minutes, you're welcome to do so. But I do want to wrap up our meeting today so those who have to go on can go on. But Janine, we want to thank you for our club. We're not as old as Eastern Shore, but we celebrate 100 years as the Rotary Club of Cape Charles, and we give you a little gift for coming today and speaking to us and sharing this wonderful history of our area. So we appreciate it. And again, where can they find your books?
Cape Charles Museum usually has them on hand.
If you're interested, you can stop by the museum. If you've never stopped by the museum, go visit that as well. But you can pick up both these books at the museum. So thank you so much for coming today. Thank you. With that said, I'm going to ask us all to stand and say the things we think, say, and do. If you don't know what they are, they're here on the wall. Number one. 4. Let's start with 5 now.
So we have fun.
Excellent. Everybody have a great day. Thank you.